Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with FinanceandLiberty.com, and back with us today is Bill Murphy, the chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee and founder of La Metropole Cafe. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here again, Elijah. Thanks for all you do.
Definitely, and thank you for all the investigation into the gold market that you've done. And today I would like to maybe start out, I'd like to get into later about the U.S. Justice Department investigating gold manipulation, but I guess did you want to start out with just an update? We haven't had you on in about 6 months. Did you want to give our viewers an update on what you've been seeing in the precious metal market and also with respect to the manipulation?
Well, I suppose, it's probably very obvious to everybody, the intensity of the manipulation in terms of the pressure on the prices of gold and silver is as intense as it's ever been. Last year, the last half a year, it was horrible, and we had a little reprieve here early, and they've gone back to the same drill again. Gold on Friday made the third worst weekly close in 42 months. It's, completed some massive top formations. None of the news that would normally be bullish, which has any effect on the market whatsoever, whether it's demand out of China or elsewhere or other reasons that gold should be going up in terms of debt and debasing, all the things that years ago, if we had talked about this, you said, boy, that's awfully bullish. And I suppose, the dollar's gone parabolic, and people could say that's, bearish for gold, but it's because they made it that way. And dollar was going up the same direction in January when gold, rallied $100. So the bottom line is, and whether there's something very, troubling behind the scenes, which many of us feel is the case, is true or not, they're after the gold price to get it off the window screen, to get people out of the market, to create as little interest as possible while they're still trying to work things out. And they're very intense about it. And one day, 1 week, the whole world will change, but none of us know when that's going to be. And all the bulls right now are wrong in terms of the price action, not wrong in terms of what's really going on. But the bottom line is, the rich and powerful, the gold cartel and their allies are just that, so powerful that they can negate everything else. They made a decision to do so years ago, and they're still on the case.
Definitely, and I know last time we discussed about the J.P. Morgan silver manipulation. Do you have any new news from what's going on with J.P. Morgan right now?
Not really. The thing that I focus on, and it's been the tell of the entire bear market down, has been the high open interest in silver, where they and their allies have stayed on the short side and had it in an iron grip. And the open interest now is only 10,000 or so off its recent highs, close to its all-time highs. They've been relentless, and outside of a few days, the price action has been as heavy and terrible as it can be. Again, I'm still a big Eric Sprott fan, and think Eric's going to be right as he's been over his 40-year career, and silver's going to go bonkers. But when they're going to lose control of this grip, which is what they have, and none of us can figure out where the physical silver has come from, but it's there somehow. And I have my own theory, but it's one of these kind of mysteries that's going to go on until everything changes, and it'll happen very quickly, I think.
I know that the U.S. Justice Department a couple weeks ago started investigating alleged gold manipulation by about 10 banks, including J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisse, and Deutsche Bank. What is your perspective on this investigation? Do you think it'll get anywhere?
I think it's Mickey Mouse. It's so rinky-dink. Not in the sense of what the banks are doing. There's been a lot of attention, and appropriately so of late. They're rigging all the markets. They've been fined how many billions in the currency markets, the energy markets, the mortgage markets, the LIBOR market. There's been a lot of attention about what's going on in the gold fix, but the real story is what is the manipulation of the gold and silver prices in a big picture sense by the Bank for International Settlements, by the U.S. government. What are they? They're investigating themselves? Oh, that's going to go far. And of course, the big banks are involved, and they've changed a little bit over the years. But I think it's just not. It's not even. I don't even pay attention to it. It's good to have the word manipulation out there because it gets the uninformed attracted to the issue, And I suppose in that regard it's helpful but again, all these markets have been rigged. But until they get to how the market's traded, who's doing what, how it's, they're using central bank gold, behind the scenes to meet the physical market demand that they can't normally meet. Until that is exposed and what they've done and why, these other little investigations, I mean, what are they? A lot of it's involved in what they're doing in England. What about what's going on in the COMEX? That's where the problem is. So I have little hope for it until we can get to the real story. These things, life's going to go on. What's happened since that was announced? Gold's got killed.
Definitely, and we've been talking for a long time that, this gold manipulation will eventually get exposed. But I mean, if the U.S. Justice Department is getting into it and investigating the gold manipulation, and even that you say won't expose the gold manipulation, how will it ever be exposed?
Well, that's a good point, and that's where I come from. I think, God has worked very hard to expose what's been going on in so many different ways via conferences and information. And my colleague Chris Powell's done an incredible job of documenting all these different things that show how these institutions have been on the record and acknowledging that they're interfering in the gold market, but it doesn't make any difference. And there's no free press, there's no rule of law when it comes to the precious metals markets. I mean, I look at the silver market investigation was the only one that they couldn't find wrongdoing in. Out of all the investigations they've been doing in all these other markets I just talked about, the only one is silver? Sure. And I just don't expect anything to happen to get to these gold companies executives that won't do anything, and the World Gold Council, which should have been on this case all the time, and the press, which you're not even allowed to ask questions of central banks. It's beyond a farce. And so to answer the answer to the question, it's going to blow up someday, whether it's the Ponzi scheme in terms of the unallocated accounts or whether it's the gold that's been sold over and over again in various ways that's not there. At some point, the gold and silver markets are going to blow up. And then it's going to be the biggest financial scandal in U.S. history. And then all the stuff that we've done and some other wonderful people that have tried to expose this nightmare, it'll all become a big, big deal. And it's all going to be worth it. But in terms of it coming out because the press is going to do anything about it, or the U.S. Justice Department's really going to get and say, oh, yeah, we're rigging the gold and silver prices, ain't going to happen. And I've been at this over a decade and a half, and if it hasn't happened by now, it ain't going to happen until it blows up. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to be a big deal, and it is going to blow up, and it's all going to be worth it. But that's the answer is all of a sudden there's going to be chaos in the gold and silver markets, and it'll all become exposed because of physical market issues.
Now, I wanted to turn our focus to the London Gold Fix. On March 20th, the London Gold Fix will change into an electronic system run by Intercontinental Exchange. And Andrew Maguire was recently interviewed on King World News, and his opinion is that China will insert some of their government-owned banks into the new London gold price fixing system, which will push the London bullion banks out of their privileged position in the market, and that the London bullion banks will not be able to deliver real metal anymore and will be forced to settle their contracts in cash. What is your perspective on this?
Well, and as a good guy and a real smart guy, and I just hope he's right. We'll have to see. I mean, thus far, or any of our talk on what's going to change the market in China and demand and different exchanges and the expose of the rigging of the gold fix, nothing has made one bit of difference. Nothing. So we said we just got our third worst weekly close in 3.5 years. So we've got to see some of these things manifest themselves and start affecting the market. So far, nothing has. And maybe this will be it. But, if we've jumped on any of these things, or we've learned anything, if we jump on any of these things in the last couple of years, they haven't meant anything compared to the power and ability of the gold cartel to bury the prices when they feel it's in their interest to do so.
Definitely. And I guess to wrap up, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had?
Well, yeah. One, thanks for getting a hold of me. It's great talking to you. And I think what they're trying to do is to get people out, to have people run away like they did in the 1970s. And Murray Pollitt, this legendary fellow in Toronto, was a good friend of my friend John Embry, and he used to told John, and he passed away a couple of years ago, but In the 70s, a lot of the veteran traders and people that knew what was coming and why just got burnt out waiting for it to happen. And then, of course, then it went ballistic, and people made a fortune that were around, but very few of the veteran people were left. They got burned out and got too tired of it, and that's understandable. And I think that's what's happening now. That's what Murray thinks was going to happen again, God bless him. And it's happening. I mean, people are just quitting. You know, they can't take it anymore. And that's what I said earlier. I think what's going to happen, this thing will change dramatically, very violently. Whether it's a reset, that's hard to say because that would create all kinds of havoc, but that could certainly happen. But it will happen, and it will be violent, and the numbers on the upside, because of what they've done, think of Newton's law, for every action is an equal and opposite reaction thing. It's going to be spectacular, and for the people that are stick with it, going to be happy campers. And for a lot of other people, there's probably going to be a lot of chaos coming. They don't quite know how to deal with it. So while this is a struggle right now, it's going to be worth it in the end. So I guess they say if you want to dance, you got to pay the fiddler, and this is an expensive fiddler in terms of time.
As we always say, the manipulation right now is just an opportunity. We're seeing silver below $16 right now. Gold, I believe, is below $1,200. So it really, right now, is just a great opportunity to acquire precious metals while they're being manipulated so low.
Well, it's the one thing I leave you with is that's one thing that's good to know what Gada knows about these things being artificially suppressed. That's one line I use all the time. That's what they are. They're artificially suppressed compared to where they ought to be. I mean, heck, even if gold would have kept pace with inflation, it would be, a little more than double what it is now. So it is coming, and again, knowing what we know, it makes it more comfortable to stay with the program. And so that's how I think, by knowing what Gada knows, it can be of help to longer-term investors.
Definitely. And one thing just before we let you go, a viewer is wanting to know whether you think that the precious metal markets could go lower. The viewer says that they've been hearing that some dealers have excess stock and precious metal prices might actually go lower. What is your perspective on that? Do you see that precious metal prices could go even lower from where they are now?
Oh, sure. Anything can happen. I mean, look what it's done just recently. As I said earlier, all the bulls are wrong. It's a fact of life. I mean, we're in the tank, and we don't know how much they're going to press it. I mean, the open interest is going up again in gold. The gold cartel is attracting specs to go short, and they're piling in. And who knows, maybe at some point the exit plan will have to be, in my opinion, is that they're going to get, the gold cartel is going to have to get the specs massively short so they can cover their positions, the gold cartel, in other words, so they can get out of what they're in. I don't think they can get very long, because when they start buying, and if the market starts going up, the specs will all cover, and the specs will start getting long again. There's technical systems. And you have to have a seller in a market. So I think the best they can do at this point, at some point down the road here, is see everybody's short, so they cover their positions, and then all of a sudden things will change very quickly. And maybe that's their end game. We don't know what that is, but it's coming. Again, none of us know when that's going to be, and we just have to be patient.
Definitely. And did you want to share with the viewers where they can find you if they're interested in hearing more?
Sure. I can get on my colleague Chris Powell has a Gada email list. I can sign up and get on there for free at Gada.org. And then go to La Metropole Cafe and sign up for a 2-week free trial and see if what I put out every day and other information from really sharp people is worth their time and money. And it's www.lemetropolecafe.com.
Well, Bill Murphy, Chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Anytime. Best to you.
This video was brought to you by ReluctantPreppers.com. Click here to watch Reluctant Prepper's latest interview, where Bill Murphy explains what your family needs to know about gold and silver. Now for a clip from the interview.
It's horrifying what I've learned about how the United States works. We don't have free markets and we don't have a free press. I mean, our subject is not allowed to be discussed. Now it's like a 4-letter word. We have some of the most distinguished people in the industry supporting us and behind us, and they've all come and spoken at our conferences. yet we go to the press and say what we have to say. We're not allowed to be mentioned, and I'm not just making that up. The Bloomberg Gold reporter said she cannot mention Ghana.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com